Hey everyone, today's video I'm going to be showing you my LEGO Greninja MOC and give you a detailed look of the build, including its features, posability, some of the building techniques used, and stay tuned for the end for a surprise reveal. If you're interested to build this yourself, you can check the link in the description below for both the parts file and instructions, which are up on my store, and the proceeds just help to support this channel and future MOCs and builds. Greninja was a Pokemon that I wanted to design for a very long time, and it was requested by many of you, but I had trouble translating it into LEGO, which was mainly due to my own skills at the time. After a while, and revisiting the design several more times, I was finally able to make some headway with the MOC, and was able to come up with what you see here today. Taking over a look at the MOC, you'll notice that the frame and limbs are pretty narrow, and that was one of the major challenges in capturing its features in such a small space, even at this scale. The torso was probably one of the easier parts that came together, and actually doesn't have that many parts used for it. Most of its shaping and form relies on these half wedge slopes in blue, which give it that triangular shaping, and allows it to taper down to the waist. I tried to play with a few different building techniques to capture the look of its frontal fin at the bottom, but settled on just using this 1x2 curved slope piece attached onto a clip and pneumatic T-bar, so that it can be angled up just like the official design. Ideally this fin would be thinner and more triangular, but the other pieces I used just made it stick out a bit too much. The back is pretty simple, and the tail fin just uses a couple of slope pieces. But I will say that the larger slope piece here does tend to pop off on its own, so you just have to be careful when you're handling or posing it around. One of the trickiest parts of this build, and what stopped me for the longest time, was trying to capture the look of the hands and the feet. Even though blue is quite common in LEGO and has a large variety of parts, there weren't that many pieces that I thought I could use, and I probably went through tons of different building techniques before coming up with this design. The main piece that inspired this building technique was the Technic axle and half pin connector used for the fingers, which is part number 44, and is surprisingly a fairly old piece, being introduced as early as 1998, however it's still being used in some current sets today. I don't remember exactly how I came across this piece, but I'm happy I did since it allowed me to get over one of the biggest hurdles with this design. With this building technique, you aren't able to bend or spread the fingers out, and for those of you wondering, this piece does come in black as well. The rest of the arms are pretty simple and use clip tiles and bar plates, just because I didn't want to have the mixer style ball joints break up the look of the blue. Despite this, it still has a decent range of motion, so you can rotate and bend the shoulder, elbows, and wrists. And then once I got the design for the hands, I'll be able to capture the look of the feet using the same technique, but tweaking it a bit since it only has 2 front toes, and the one at the back is simply just a point. For the legs, the thighs are bulkier than the other limbs, so I added some more pieces here, and at the back, I even included the suggestion of its water shuriken patterns, which is just done using some meter measure plates. I do think that this detail will be better captured as either a print or sticker, since this technique does make it look a bit too blocky, but I tried the best that I could. Some of you may notice that the hips are slightly different than the initial design that I posted on my Instagram. This was one of the changes I had to make after build testing it, since the initial connection was too weak and would pop off easily when I was posing it. This new connection is much stronger, but I had to use some non-blue pieces, so I tried to cover it up as best as I could, and hopefully it's not that noticeable. For the knees, I wanted to make sure that I included this white circle pattern or padding, and this is just done using an inverted round tile attached on some clip plates, but due to this connection, the knee is a bit fragile and the range of motion is somewhat limited. There's articulation at the hips, so you can bend it forward and back, as well as the knees. You can have it bent or straight out, but not as far as the hips, and you can bend and rotate the feet as well. I usually have it squatting or in a low stance, like how it's normally seen in the game or anime, but you can have it standing upright, and thankfully the feet are quite wide, which just helps with its overall stability and getting it balanced. For the head, this was the next major obstacle in designing this, since it has many thin and sharp features which are quite tricky to capture. The fins on its head are just done with wedge plates, with the center one being a bit thicker, and that's mainly due to the building technique used for the base of the head. The base of the head uses 2 2x2 snap plates attached with the studs facing outward, and the shaping at the front is done with some slopes, while the eyes are suggested here with a red stud and a white quarter round tile onto a blue inverted bracket piece. I would have liked to include the pupil for the eye and try using a red hollow stud instead, but in my opinion it looked a bit awkward, and I ended up preferring this look at the end. I know some of you may be wondering why is the tongue red and not pink, and this was a design choice I made mainly due to the bright light pink being much more limited in LEGO compared to red. One of the details I want to include needs to use these 1x2 wedge notch pieces which connect onto the sides, and are supposed to resemble the tongue folding and wrapping around the neck like a scarf, similar to the official design. Also wanted this part of the tongue that sticks out to have some articulation. So each section uses bar and clip pieces so you can rotate them. And where it connects to the head, you can rotate and bend it, giving you more options and different looks. And if I were to use bright light pink here, I would have need to use other colors, which would have broken up the overall look of the tongue. The entire head is attached onto a pneumatic T-bar piece, so you can bend it up and down and rotate it side to side with a pretty good range of motion. So usually this is when I show you guys a sense of scale, but for an added surprise, and as suggested by some of you, here is my attempt at its Ash Greninja form. This form used the design I just showed you, but with some parts added or swapped in to capture its new features. The first change you may notice is the large water shuriken that it dons on its back, and this is just done with a few translite blue pieces, but mainly relies on these 1x6 curve slopes to capture its shaping. This entire subassembly is attached with the blue half Technic pin on its back, and for those wondering, this is easily removable, and I'll show you how you can attach it to its hand. The other major difference you may notice is in the head, which now has more red and black elements to it, resembling some of Ash's features, and signifying the bond that they both built throughout the series. With the addition of the water shuriken, you can still pose the head around, but the range of motion is a bit more limited than its base form. Looking down to the torso, it's a smaller change, but it now has a distinct pattern or design to it, and I tried to capture it as best as I could by using these quarter round tiles in tan. The last change you may notice is that for one of the hands, I've swapped out the 2x2 tile with a jumper, and added a 1x1 trans clear round tile with a bar so that you could easily attach the water shuriken here, so that you can have it in a more dynamic pose, or make it look like it's getting ready to attack. Finally, this is how it looks scaled up to a minifigure. And the total part count for the base form is 235 pieces, while the Ash Greninja form uses an additional 71 pieces. At the time of the recording of this video, the base form is estimated to cost around $35 to $40 Canadian, while the Ash Greninja form will roughly be another $15 Canadian on top, making the final cost for both around $50 to $55 Canadian. Please keep in mind this does not include shipping or handling, and your final cost may vary. For the instructions and parts file below, I've included steps and parts needed for both forms, so you can choose which form you want to build and display. Also, I usually post all my mocks or designs on my Instagram and TikTok first, but feel free to check out my channel where I've already uploaded a bunch of other LEGO Pokemon mocks, and a couple of them will show up on screen shortly. Anyway, hope you all enjoyed this video, and thanks for watching.